Imagine the following scene. A woman, after years swallowing frogs and pretending that everything is fine, finally decides to give a life lesson that no one will forget. This story is not fiction, it is the reality of many families where respect seems like a cheap exchange coin. And today you will know a case that proves, when patience ends, creativity begins. We all have that person in the family who transforms commemorative dates into true resistance tests. For Gennaro, birthday was not just a celebration, it was a spectacle where she, of course, should be the absolute star. At 58, she had already gotten used to a well-rehearsed script. The others guessed, or rather, they should guess, their desires and fulfilled them with a smile on their face, as if it were an honor to serve the queen of the day. But there was a detail that she never took into account. Her daughter-in-law was not the type that bends forever. Married 3 years ago, and already lived a very different reality from the fairy tales that the mother-in-law loved so much. While Konstantinovna dreamed of luxury gifts, the couple could barely raise money to leave the rented kitchenette on the outskirts of the city and dreamed of a child. With his modest salary of 40,000 rubles as a manager in a small company, never complained. Which won a little more, heard since I was a child who was pure gold, and therefore his wife should work harder to maintain the family level. A level that conveniently only climbed when it came to the mother's whims. It all started a month before the mother-in-law's birthday. As usual, started his expectation campaign. He called all acquaintances talking about the event of the year, let out indirect about how good it would be to renew the kitchen and how elegant would be some greens with grenades. Always attentive to maternal suggestions, wasted no time. The next day, a message arrived on S cell phone, right in the middle of his pile of reports at work. List of gifts for mom on the birthday, both of us. Multi-cooker Redmond, basic basin. Dyson vertical vacuum cleaner. Gold earrings with grenades, she loves this tone. About 40,000, more or less. You know how important it is to maintain harmony in the family, right? Relay the message 3 times. 40,000 rubles, your entire salary of the month. And it was not a cost division, no, had already spent its part with new wheels to the car and the gym tuition. Male priorities, as he would say later. At night, with the calm of those who already know that the bomb will explode, she touches the subject. With the naturalness of those who repeat a decorated discourse, explains that the mother deserves the best, that tradition is tradition and that needs to show respect to the family. When she asks why she should play alone such generosity, the answer is quick. Men have other financial responsibilities, more important. Swallows hard. It remembers his last birthday, when he won a towel game bought in a hurry at the corner store. In turn, honored the daughter-in-law with a plastic vase and a sermon on how young people do not need luxuries. A week later, a new message from, oh, and mom has already chosen her birthday gift too. It's a gift from you, an electric kettle, 1,200 rubles from the online market. 40,000 against 1,200. The contrast was so absurd that it hurt. Has always been patient, but this time something inside it snapped. There were no screams, no doors knocking. Just a nod and a how cool, very practical. While slept quietly, she began to draw her plan. For the next 2 weeks, acted with the accuracy of a general preparing a battle. Yes, it bought a multi-ochre, but not the Redmond of 10,000, but a Chinese copy for 3,000. Aspire. Pain. A basic model, wire, for 4,000, instead of the wireless Dyson. And the earrings. A shining jewelry with stones that shone more than one traffic light, for 500 rubles. But that was just the first part. At the same time, she invested in herself as she had never dared, a stunning dress of 15,000, 10,000 shoes and a 12,000 bag all hidden in her friend's house's kind, which vibrated with every detail of their operation. This will be epic, both laughed, while was embarrassing the gifts boxes for the mother-in-law. A week before the big day, she announces ready. The gifts are beautiful, look. He, without suspecting anything, praises his wife's dedication. After all, who would suspect a woman who always gave in? Konstantinovna was marked in a chic restaurant with 20 guests, relatives, friends, and neighbors. She had warned, my daughter-in-law prepared special, expensive and quality gift. Arrived radiant, with his new dress, impeccable shoes, and the bag that looked like a fashion magazine. Of course, Wasted no time. This set was not too expensive, was it? He asked, with the tone of those who already know that the answer will make her satisfied. Ah, it was a gift for my birthday, said, looking deep into her husband's eyes, who paled the same time. The time has come. Settled in the center of the table like a queen waiting for taxes. The guests were delivering their offers, boxes of candies, bouquets, creams, books. Until it was the time of the couple. With a serene smile, handed over the 3 boxes wrapped with silk paper. The guests applauded, eager for the luxury gifts that the birthday girl had announced so much. Opened the first box. A multioka, but not that. The packaging displayed Chinese characters and the name of an unknown brand. Is this a multioka? He asked, turning the box as if he expected the Redmond logo to appear by magic. Yes, a multicooker. As you asked, he said, with the same tranquility as those who comment on the mood. The vacuum cleaner was worse. Instead of the elegant and wireless DYS, an old model with cheap wire and plastic. The guests began to change glances, and S' face was red as a pepper's. But the best was yet to come. When opening the earrings box, followed the same ritual, he took the plastic package lid and he came across a vulgar jewelry whose stones shone with the subtlety of a neon sign. It was so obvious that even the least attentive realized the scam. What does that mean? He sinned, trying to keep the composure before the guests. What's wrong? You ordered a multicooker, here it is. A vacuum cleaner, here it is. Earrings with stones, here they are, said, with an almost angelic smile, while stuffy laughs echoed through the room. Finally realizing that he was in trouble, tried to intervene, but he was already a step ahead. Dear, where's your gift to your mother? I already gave mine, he asked aloud, making all his eyes turn to him. Stammered something about sets, but relentless, clarified. No. I bought the gifts. Alone. With my money. Just as you bought the kettle for me. Alone. With your. Oh, no, wait, with my money too. Since you spent yours in other things. The silence that followed was as eloquent as a speech. Humiliated before all, had no choice but to swallow his own medicine. Anne. He left the restaurant with his head raised, knowing that for the first time he had put his value above the expectations of others. Moral of the story? Respect is not begged, one conquers. And sometimes, to be heard, it is necessary to speak in the language that others understand. PR. Efferentially, with style. Side of justice. And for the first time, this justice had a name, balance. The silence that settled in the room was dense enough to cut with a knife. Chair retreated as if it had been slapped, the wide eyes with unbelief. Her son, the boy she had created to be her obedient shadow, had just traced a line on the floor. Not with words, but with an authority she never imagined he could have. It was not rebellion. It was self-respect. Key, in turn, needed nothing more. She simply crossed her arms and watched, while her husband finally assumed the place she should always have occupied, between her mother and wife, not after either. The scene was almost comical, with misaligned hair and tears-blurred makeup, looked like a child who had his favorite toy confiscated. But this time, the toy was the control she exerted on her family. Are you choosing her? He repeated the lamenters, the trembling voice of indignation. I'm choosing the right, said, without blinking. Key works as much as I do. She has the right to decide how to spend your money. And you have no right to demand anything from anyone. The ground trembled, or at least that's what must have felt. Because for the first time in decades, someone told you no. And it was not a no shy, it was not an excuses or compensation promises. It was a non-firm, definitive, the kind of no that leaves no room for emotional blackmail or hysteria crises. Key then allowed a small smile. Not of triumph, that would be vulgar, but of relief. Because she knew, that moment was not about winning a battle. It was about breaking a cycle. The cycle of women who silence, throw frogs, who finance the ego of others in exchange for approval crumbs. And the gifts? He insisted, as if there were still a letter in his sleeve. The gifts you received are intact, Key said dryly. A functional multi-cooker, a cleaner that cleans well, and some earrings that frankly match your taste. If you didn't like it, you can return. Or, even better, you can learn to thank you for what you have. The Unch opened her mouth, closed, opened again, but no word came out. Because deep down she knew, she had lost. Not for lack of screams or dramas, but because for the first time their tactics didn't work. The theater had no audience. The tears did not soften anyone. And worst of all, she had become the villain of her own story. Em accompanied the mother to the door, not with the usual submission, but with the posture of those who meet a duty, not a ritual of humiliation. When he returned, he found Key in the kitchen, preparing tea in the same teapot of 1,200 rubles, the one who, unintentionally, had become the symbol of a silent revolution. "Sorry," he murmured, sitting at the table. "It took me so much to see." She served a cup, her eyes shining with something that was not anger, nor resentment, but hope. "The important thing is that you saw." And it was like this, between the vapor of tea and the weight of decades of broken silences, that something has changed. Not because Key had won a discussion, but because finally someone had chosen to be by his side. And that, more than any expensive gift, was invaluable. That was the moment when the common sense balance finally leaned against the right side. "The truth, Mother, is that everything that happened on the birthday was a consequence of her own choices. You required expensive gifts from someone to those who only offered crumbs. But I am your mother." "Yes, it is. And being a mother does not give her the right to humiliate my wife or to charge her the impossible." These words echoed like a blow to Lydia Konstantinovna's chest. For the first time in years of marriage, Maxim not only took advantage of Kira, but did so against the mother herself. The fracture in the control armor that she had cultivated so much was now visible, painful. He knocked on the door, threatening to disinherit his son, as if the money could buy the loyalty he had already lost. When the noise of the car moved away, Maxim let out a heavy sigh, as a burden has been carrying for decades. He turned to Kira, his eyes loaded with something between repentance and gratitude. "Kira, forgive me." "Why?" she asked, though she knew the answer. "For not defending me. For letting your mother treat me like a maid. By those ridiculous gift lessons." He did not respond with words. He opened his arms, and she went to him, not out of obligation, but because for the first time he felt that hug was sincere. Maxim buried his face on his hair and murmured, "I didn't want to fight with you and my mother. I just didn't see how unfair it was. Like you. With myself. I didn't want to separate you." Kira walked away enough to look into his eyes. "I just got tired of being invisible. To be the last in line." And it was there, between the smell of cold tea and the silence that succeeded years of conformism, that something was reborn. Not peace, this would come later, but the certainty that for the first time they were on the same side. The months that followed were not easy. Lydia Konstantinovna declared war, boycotted the couple, spread to the acquaintances that her daughter-in-law was an ungrateful, an ambitious heartless. But the effect was the opposite of expected. Anyone who had known the mother-in-law for years only nodded with an understanding smile when he heard his complaints. Many women, in secret, admired Kira's courage. Some even dared to ask in a low voice, "How did you get it?" Maxim, in turn, began to transform. He learned to be a husband, not a son eternally hostage to maternal expectations. He made decisions without consulting his mother, defending Kira without fears, dividing the budget with justice. 6 months after the scandal, Lydia Konstantinovna made the first truce movement. She called complaining of chest pain. Maxim went to see her, but this time it wasn't alone. It took Kira. The meeting was tense, full of uncomfortable silences and stealthy glances. But there was no screams. There were no ultimatos. The mother-in-law had to swallow her pride and admit, even if just for herself, that she needed her son more than he needed her. And if he wanted to keep him around, he would have to accept the woman he had chosen. When he completed a year of the gift incident, things had already accommodated in a new normal. Lydia Konstantinovna learned to measure words. Maxim found that he had a spine. And Kira finally won what has always deserved, respect and tranquility. On the next anniversary of the mother-in-law, the couple presented it with a cosmetics kit of 3,000 rubles half paid for each. Lydia thanked, without asking anything else. Already on Kira's birthday, Maxim surprised her with a 20,000 ring and a candlelit dinner. The mother-in-law was limited to a box of chocolates, but for the first time, congratulations sounded sincere. He even smiled. The history of the gifts became a family legend. Whenever Lydia Konstantinovna tried to go beyond the boundaries, Maxim mentioned, casual, the famous multi-cooker and the vacuum cleaner. It was enough. It was as if those words transported her back to that shameful afternoon, reminding her that there were lines that could no longer be crossed. Kira, in turn, gained a reputation. Friends and acquaintances started to look for her. My mother-in-law does this. What would you do? She listened, smiled, and told her story. Always ended with the same sentence. Respect is not asked. Get it? And if they don't respect you, it may be time to show why they should. 2 years later, the couple had saved enough to buy a 2-bedroom apartment. Kira was promoted. Maxim did not make gift lists, and if he did, it would be to surprise. She, not to the mother. Lydia Konstantinovna finally accepted that her son had grown, that his family had his own rules, and that damn teapot, yes, the same of the discussion, was still in the youth's kitchen as a silent trophy. Sometimes you have to be saved to be free, Kira used to say, passing her fingers through the cheap porcelain. And when someone complained of injustices at home, she told her story. Always with the same end. If they don't see you, make them look.